Vice News did a fantastic report on Boko Haram, so let's take a look at a piece of it here. And I'm going to warn you that this is actually really disturbing. Like, they show a lot of bodies that are mangled, and I think there's like for a split second you see a beheading. So just a warning in advance here. If you're squeamish, don't watch.
Nigeria is almost equally divided along religious lines. The country's southern region is predominantly Christian and is home to oil and a thriving economy. The north of the country, on the other hand, has a majority Muslim population. With minimal natural resources, the north is extremely poor. Couple that with the lack of government presence, and it's become a breeding ground for the rise of radical Islam. In 2002, Muslim cleric Muhammad Yusuf founded the group Boko Haram. The name loosely translates to Western education is forbidden. So Muhammad Yusuf, the founder, grew up right over there.
Yes.
And then his mosque is right here.
Yeah.
And so this is literally where Boko Haram started.
Yes. And you know, most of these young men ended up killing their parents.
What?
Their parents, their families, their friends. They have a list. They go one after another.
In 2009, after Nigerian security forces killed Yusuf, his deputy, the more radical Abu Bakar Shekau, took over the group and violence increased exponentially. They bombed the UN headquarters in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, in 2011. But the group was still largely unknown outside of Nigeria. It wasn't until 2014, with the abduction of nearly 300 schoolgirls from Chibok town in Borno State, that Boko Haram drew international attention and condemnation.
My husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night.
The Bring Back Our Girls campaign was extremely successful at increasing awareness of Boko Haram. Unfortunately, it did almost nothing to prevent further attacks, and Boko Haram continued to terrorize northern Nigeria, causing thousands of refugees to flee their homes in rural areas and head to the city of Maiduguri.
Vice News, yet again, doing a fantastic report. You guys could check out the whole thing. I think it's like 30 minutes. I haven't even seen it all. I just watched some of the beginning, and I clipped this out, and I wanted to discuss it with you guys. We've covered Al-Shabaab in Somalia and how horrendous they are and how they've essentially tried to take over the government or lack of government in Somalia. Now we see a similar thing going on with Boko Haram in Nigeria. And, you know, we've covered all these different groups, and what is there to say about them other than they're the worst of the worst? And what strikes me is they're basically all young, angry men with nothing to do, and then they gravitate towards radicalism, in this case, radical Islam, and they just can't wait to do violence and try to attain more power and take over more regions. And, you know, there was a part there earlier on, I don't know if you caught it, where they said, I think this is very telling. They said, quote, "The North is extremely poor," so northern Nigeria is extremely poor, like the Muslim half of Nigeria, extremely poor, "and there's no government presence. So there's no order, there's no structure, there's no money, there's nothing to do, and religion is very prevalent." That's a very bad mix. That's about as bad of a mix as you can possibly get. And then what happens? How does it manifest itself? I got chills when I heard the journalist from Nigeria say it. He said a lot of these guys killed their parents. They kill their parents, they kill their families, they kill their friends. And all to be part of this group, feel like they're one in this group. Oh, man. How can anybody do that? I mean, you would think, like, at a certain point, your ideology would break down in the face of something that's an innate biological preference, right? Like, the innate biological preference is, I kind of want to try to work stuff out with my family and be, like, cool with them. Even if you don't love them and you're not up each other's ass and hanging out with each other all the time. Like, it's your family. And you have literally a blood connection to them, right? So you would think that there's something in people that is just like, okay, but like we're cool, right? Like I love you. Let's not, do anything fucked up to each other. But the ideology overrides that for these people. tribalism and ideology and religion override that. Where they're like, no, I'm young, I'm angry, I have nothing to fucking do, and I'm a religious zealot and a lunatic and a Muslim fundamentalist, so I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill my parents. I don't know what the answer is, man. And that's the scariest part here. Usually when we cover stories like this, I can wrap things up nice and tight in a neat little bow for you and say, do X, and that'll make it better. What do you do when it's this far gone? I don't know. I mean, we know that for the next generation, what you have to do is actually have economic opportunity and government presence in the northern region. So you need stability, you need structure, and you need money, and you need people to give a shit who are there. So that's step number one to prevent the next generation from becoming jihadists and becoming radicalized. But outside of that, how do you deal with Boko Haram today? How do you deal with them right now? I mean, I guess you just have to hope that the Nigerian army that's fighting back against them, that they're more powerful and they have more weapons and they can get the job done. I guess you have to hope that. And then I also guess that you have to hope that if it gets really, really bad, that the UN can step in and we could get international approval across the board and the UN attacks it together. Not one nation above nations. I hate it when the U.S. is the only one that does something because resentment will grow against us no matter what we do, and oftentimes we'll kill civilians. I don't want to have that on our hands. So I guess, yeah, the UN step in, get involved in one way or another. But, I mean, the overall conclusion is this is beyond fucked, and it's going to take a generation or more to try to fix the problem, because when you have a situation like this where religious fundamentalists are killing their parents, killing everybody in sight, and going buck wild, it ain't an easy fix.